With the NBA set to enter a new era of players in the next 5 years, which single player will be on top of the basketball world as the best player in the NBA? Let's get into it. What is up, everybody? Jacob Miller here with Amateur Hour Sports, where we give you raw and unfiltered sporting content Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So if it is your first time here with me today, maybe you like insight and opinion on the sporting world, and perhaps some informative videos on the history of sport every now and then, make sure you subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports. So who I think will be the best player in the NBA in 5 years' time? It seems like LeBron, he maybe could, but I don't think he's still going to be stomping around at 40 years old at this MVP type level. And I think for Giannis, he very much has the capability to be the best NBA player in 5 years still, because if he keeps his athleticism till he's 30, and he very well can do so, he could probably be the top on this list. But I want to go to a new era of players, a very young core of the NBA. That's what I want to talk about for this video. And unfortunately, I can't talk about players in the draft because we just don't know how good they were in the NBA yet. So I'm going to go with the young players that are currently in the NBA. So right now, the names kind of swirling my mind are Luka Doncic, Jayson Tatum, Trae Young, and Zion Williamson. Those are the four I was thinking about for the best player in 5 years. Starting with Trey Young, I'm going to eliminate him from this one pretty quickly because as talented as he is going forward, he cannot play defense. This season and last season, his defensive rating was worse than his offensive rating. His defensive rating was 117 last year and this year, compared to a 107 offensive rating last season and a 114 offensive rating this season. That obviously can improve, but he isn't really showing signs of developing his perimeter defense, and that is really bad when you look at those statistics. He really needs to improve on those to become that elite point guard that he's destined to be, because offensively he is absolutely phenomenal. The range on him, it's unlimited. Like, you thought Steph Curry had unlimited range? It seems like Trae Young could surpass that range that Steph Curry possessed. Obviously only 21 and very difficult to guard, because how can you stop him from pulling up from way beyond the arc? But that defense really needs to improve to be the best player in the NBA. And I think that Trae Young has an MVP on the cards in the next 10 years. Over the course of this decade, I think he will be good enough to win an MVP, but the defense will have to improve for that to happen. It doesn't have to be tremendous, just needs to be serviceable on defense. So that narrows us to three players: Luka Doncic, Jayson Tatum, and Zion Williamson. Those are the big three. I think that will be the players who highlight this decade of basketball. But I think that Luka Doncic is the one that is going to run the NBA over the course of this decade. In the case of Zion Williamson, I'm very worried about his fragility. If he can stay healthy, then potentially he can be that dominant force in the NBA. But the problem with Zion is he needs a Giannis-like team around him. They need to build the team specifically for Zion. They need to have shooters placed all around him so he can open up the lane and let him drive in, and he's huge. He's huge. He can get to the rim, get his points, but he needs that really cleared out for him. He needs that specific team for him. So if New Orleans can provide him that team, maybe that will be great for Zion. They keep on Brandon Ingram, and I think Lonzo Ball is perfect for those guys. Maybe some other pieces. I think the JJ Redick piece is great if he can stay around for a few more years. They need to build a specific team for Zion, and that is the only problem I see. I don't think Zion can be the number one and sole option on a championship winning team. I think he needs one more elite player playing with him in order to win a championship. And though he may be talented enough to be that one, his style of play just won't cater towards the way the NBA is trending. If New Orleans can get that perfect team around Zion Williamson, for sure this guy can win an MVP. He can win one even without that team. Zion is that good. He has absolutely shocked me how good he was. I thought he'd be good, but I didn't think he'd be this goddamn good this quickly. It is unbelievable what he has done. I don't think he'll be able to get New Orleans to the playoffs this season. I know they'll be playing in that 22-team format, whatever. But into the last 16, I don't think he's going to be able to get New Orleans there this season. But if he can stay healthy for most of next season, get maybe 70 games under his belt, New Orleans are going to be a playoff team, especially if Brandon Ingram continues to improve, especially, if Lonzo finally takes that step for a full season. That's going to be a great team for the future. I think that core is one that can win a championship if they build together and get those pieces there, because B.I., Zion are the duo that can get a chip, and Lonzo is a great point guard to have there, a really selfless point guard to help those guys excel on offense. With Jayson Tatum, I don't think he'll be the best player in the NBA. Well, finally, Jayson Tatum has actually grown into the hype he had last season. The hype he had last season is how good he is now, and people are still talking about him in a more elevated sense than he needs to be, but Jayson Tatum has been absolutely phenomenal this season. He has finally fixed his awful habit of taking these poor contested mid-range shots. There are better shot selections available, and he has started taking those better shots. He's more concerned about getting to the rim and shooting threes, ditching that mid-range game, which really affected his efficiency. But his game still relies heavily on the isolation of his play, and for that reason, I think that Jayson Tatum needs to stay on a very talented team like Boston. I don't think Jayson Tatum can really carry a team on his own. And for that reason, I don't think he will be the best NBA player in 5 years, because if you need help on your team, I don't think Luka Doncic needs to have elite players around him to be a great team and be a great player on that great team. I think the likes of Zion Williamson and Jayson Tatum need those other pieces beside them in order to really, really thrive. And obviously, Luka Doncic would be even better with a great team around him, but I think he would be able to thrive without that. Jayson Tatum needs other guys spreading out the court for him, giving the space, because he can't be that single one dominant scorer because of his isolation play. If you have a lot of the defense focusing on Jayson Tatum, I don't think he'd be able to thrive. When you get other guys, like Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker around him, giving him that space, he is elite going to the rim, and he's shooting a three-pointer very well at the moment. Jayson Tatum, another one, certainly can be an MVP in his future. He's finally starting to show signs of being able to reach that MVP potential, though he showed it in spells since the All-Star break this season. He was a bit off before the All-Star break, still taking those bad shots, but ever since he cleaned up his shot selection, he has been tremendous, finally living up to the hype that people gave him. When it comes to Luka Doncic, he will be the best NBA player in 5 years for me, because it's the nuances about his game that make him so special. The ability to play as a shooting guard and a point guard. Luka Doncic has shown this almost unparalleled LeBron-like ability to elevate the team around him, because let's compare Luka Doncic and Trey Young, as we always will, because they got traded for each other in that entry draft. When you look at those rosters on paper, the Mavericks roster and the Atlanta Hawks roster, without seeing the team names, you would probably be inclined to say that Atlanta have the better roster, but the Dallas Mavericks are 7th in the West and doing way better than the Atlanta Hawks. And they're in the West as well. Atlanta Hawks, second bottom in the East, with probably a better team on paper than the Mavericks. It's because Luka Doncic has been so tremendous this season in elevating the level of his teammates. And even this season, he doesn't have Kristaps Porzingis playing his best. Kristaps Porzingis is playing like a great player, but not an all-star level player, which he can do. So when Luka Doncic gets that all-star level Kristaps Porzingis, that could be a scary Dallas Mavericks team. What makes Luka Doncic so good is those nuances of his game. Again, those little things that he does. He's just such a highly intelligent player on the court. The ability to see a pass and make the right decision. His decision making is almost second to none in the NBA. Such a high IQ basketball player, and he's shooting the ball well. It could be better. I think he's going to clean it up once he gets some more reps in, because he's only 20, 21 years old at the moment. So still very young. The ability to clean up that efficiency. And when he does clean it up, watch the fuck out. This guy was in the MVP conversation for this season, and he only started the season at 20 years old. So when he's, entering his prime, 25 years old, this guy is going to be the best player in the NBA. And going back, his ability to elevate the level of his teammate, just making himself and Dwight Powell one of the best pick and roll duos in the NBA. And that's not something you would have thought to have said about Dwight Powell coming into the season. But the way Doncic can spread a pass and make the right decision will always make his team around him better, even when he doesn't have the elite players there. It's like LeBron, when he was playing with Cleveland, the ability to make that team so much better. Doncic is showing those signs because the Mavericks, let's face it, looking at that team was not supposed to be in the playoffs. And they were hunting around, middle of the Western Conference, and they can still do so. It's still very tight. But in the 7th seed right now, it is very surprising what they have been able to accomplish on the back of Luka Doncic switching to a point guard position. And he's only going to get better and better. Mark Cuban is going to be able to make this team way better for him. Luka Doncic is going to have the pieces around him, and even if he didn't, he would still be able to thrive. But because he is going to be able to get those pieces around him, it's just going to elevate him to an even greater level. And I know his defense could use work as well, but it is showing signs of improvement from this season. And because his game does not really rely on his athleticism, we don't have to worry about his longevity because he plays with his basketball smarts. Zion is always going to rely on his athleticism, and maybe to a degree Trae Young and Jayson Tatum will as well. Once they lose a bit of that athleticism, they're all going to falter in their ability. For Zion, it's going to be a lot when he loses his athleticism. For the likes of Jayson Tatum, he's going to falter a little bit, and Trey Young could falter maybe a little bit as well. But Luka Doncic does not use his athleticism to thrive in the NBA. And for that reason, playing in the NBA won't take as much of a toll on his body as these other guys, which will let him play longer. And even as he does lose his athleticism, and he'll lose it slower than these other guys as well, he never really relied on that athletic ability in the first place. So it's all going to be about the shooting and the basketball smarts. And that doesn't really go away with age. It doesn't go away with age. And for that reason, Luka Doncic can be a great player in the NBA from 5 years onward. I think Luka Doncic is going to be the main guy over the course of this decade. We just need to see Mark Cuban put the great piece around him, which he's been able to do so in the past for his guys. I think Luka Doncic is his NBA for this decade. Again, obviously, older guys in the NBA, like maybe Giannis, who's 25, he'll be 30 at the time. I think maybe he can still be the best player in the NBA. And maybe there's some guys coming in the draft who will prove to be the best players. But right now, from what I'm seeing, I think Luka Doncic is going to be the best NBA player in 5 years for those boatload of reasons. I really like what I'm seeing from Doncic at the moment. Comment down below who you think will be the best NBA player. And, if it's one of the guys on my list, make sure you tell me why you disagree with Doncic or why you do agree with Doncic being the best player in the NBA in 5 years. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like the video if you like and subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports for more content just like this as well. Hit that notification bell. We post 4 times a week. Stay up to date with all the content, mostly talking about soccer and NBA. Soccer is coming back very soon. The NBA is coming back very soon. Lots more content to talk about on this channel. At the end of the day, I believe I say, and if you disagree, that's okay. We'll see you again next time.